The realities. All right, obviously you see here the big star in V. Everybody knows that brand. That is Vanderbilt University, one of the highest regarded baseball programs in the country, led under Coach Corbin, who is phenomenal. These are the realities at some of these bigger schools. Obviously you see there's 23 verbal commitments already for the 2018 class at Vanderbilt. And there's a lot of players that really don't understand that and automatically assume, well, that's over-recruiting. That's simply just over-recruiting. All right, maybe at some schools it is, but there's a reason, right, that Vanderbilt's and some of the top 25, the powerhouses of the country, do have to recruit so heavy. All right, it's called the Major League Baseball draft every June. All right, so if you're looking at this list of 23, I highly doubt, because I've seen a lot of these guys play in person, all right, I highly doubt all 23 of these guys are showing up, all right, in Nashville next fall. All right, a lot of these guys are probably going to pursue their dream with Major League Baseball in the draft and sign a professional contract. All right, and probably even more of these guys are going to get drafted and strongly consider signing, all right, but then end up moving on to college. So Vanderbilts of the world and some of these other schools have to prepare that there could be a little bit of turnover. All right, if you are a Division II, Division III, or lower Division I, all right, maybe you have a guy coming in that's verbally committed and then obviously signs his national letter of intent, and you're expecting him to be there, and he gets drafted, and you lose him. All right, that is not as common as some of these bigger schools. All right, it happens a lot, and they do have to prepare for that. On the other side of that, they also have guys on the roster getting drafted. Right? And some of the bigger schools, it's not always seniors that they're already anticipating. Obviously, this guy's a senior, we know we're losing him. A lot of these guys are juniors. I'd probably say majority of these guys are juniors. So with that, they have to understand that not only am I losing all my seniors after the spring, but I'm also losing 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 juniors. All right, so they could end up losing half of their roster after the spring. So they have to prepare for that type of turnover. There are a lot of variables, and they do have to over-recruit at times just to protect themselves, right? And they do have to bring in bigger classes. With that being said, the smaller schools, okay, or maybe schools the size of Vanderbilt, but maybe not at that baseball level, they're not recruiting 23 players, right? They do not need to. There are some Division I schools that are, depending on their depth chart and their amount of players they have returning, maybe they're only taking 4 or 5 guys at the 2018 level. So don't automatically look at this list. And by the way, we found this on Perfect Game. It's public information. It's a fantastic resource to use as a recruit. Right? It's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty darn close. Okay, so if you go on and look at another school you're interested in, you see, well, shoot, they only have 3 2018s committed. That means they have 19 more spots available or 20 more spots available. That's not the way it works. They may be capped out at 4, or maybe they're only looking for a couple more guys. So understand that there's a big difference between the big dogs and some of the smaller schools and what they're able to do. And also it's a lot of coaching philosophy if they want to bring in bigger classes or not, or if they want to stay smaller. All right, so it's not 100% across the board that everybody's doing this. Every coach, every program has their own philosophy, and every program has their own needs depending on the draft as far as how many players they can and they want to recruit. To the warm weather states, to the big warm weather states. Obviously here we have the University of Southern California. All right, on an active roster, meaning a travel roster, there's 35 players. Some will be larger, all right, not the active roster, but some will be larger as far as what you would go online and see for a college roster, because there could be some red shirts involved there, right? But for University of Southern California, the reason I pulled this up, for those who are watching for the first time, we are in Northeast Ohio. It's very cold here in the winter, right? And sometimes even cold in the summer, all right? So California is an obvious destination where players know there's great baseball, it's great weather, but a lot of players do not understand the way public and private schools work, especially in the bigger states. So we pulled up Southern California's roster here to show that they have 38 players from California on their roster and only 4 from outside of the state of California. All right, USC is a public college. It's a public state college. So the reason that comes into play when they're recruiting in-state and out-of-state is that out of their 11.7 scholarships, if they're fully funded, that's based on in-state tuition. So I do not know the tuition amount for USC, but let's just throw out a round number of $15,000. Let's say it's $15,000 in-state, and out-of-state is, let's say, $30,000. Could be more or less, but let's go with that. Okay, so we have $15,000 in-state, $30,000 for out-of-state. So if they are recruiting a player in their backyard that is in California and they want to offer him, doesn't happen much, but again, we'll just throw it out there, a full ride, full tuition. All right, they're going to give that player one of their 11.7. Now, they want that same type of kid, but now that kid lives in New Jersey, and they want to offer him a full ride. Well, that one scholarship of the 11.7 is based on their $15,000. Well, that kid in New Jersey, if he's coming to California, he has to pay out-of-state tuition. Let's say it's $30,000. They have to offer them, that player, two of their scholarships to match that $30,000. Because if they offered one, that would reflect on the kid in New Jersey side as 50% scholarship. So obviously, as a coach, it's a heck of a lot more attractive to spend less money for the same type of kid because I can give them in-state tuition. All right, so when you go on these bigger states rosters, all right, that's probably why you're going to see that most of them, if not nearly all of them, are going to be from that state, is because why would you want to pay double for the same type of kid that you have in this huge state that's a baseball mecca, right, that you can go grab cheaper, right? Now, in smaller states, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Maryland, up and down the East Coast, Vermont, Maine, you're going to see a lot of out-of-state kids. They have no choice. Right? School in New Jersey cannot, as good as players are in New Jersey, they can't build a powerhouse from 40 kids from New Jersey. It'd be pretty darn tough. All right? They would have to pretty much get everybody that's worth anything in that state would have to go to that school. All right, so they do have to expand outside of their state. The bigger states, Florida, Texas, California, very rarely do they have to go out and get a guy from out of state. And if you notice the positions here, all right, it's usually for a premier position, meaning a shortstop, a big arm, a catcher, all right, maybe a premier center fielder that can go get it. As a 6'4" guy, hits for power, all right, and throws 98 from the outfield. All right, so they're going getting those premier positions, and sometimes they are willing to pay double for that, but it's very rare. Now with private schools, so if you're looking at a state, since we're on California, we'll just stay with California. If you were to go on a private school, maybe a Stanford or maybe a Division II or Division III school in California, you're probably going to see that there are more players from out of state. The reason being, let's throw out Stanford. So if they have their 11.7 that are fully funded, let's say Stanford's fully funded, they have their 11.7 scholarships to pull from, that is based on whatever that flat tuition is. So there is no in-state and out-of-state. So if we say it's $50,000 to go to school at Stanford, that one scholarship is $50,000 whether the player is from San Diego in California or from Amherst, Ohio. All right, so you will see them pulling, all right, more out-of-state players at those private schools, even in those bigger states. That is kind of just an added luxury for those guys that they can go out there, and that scholarship amount is the same for in-state and out-of-state.